15th, right?
Yes.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Happy Monday. This is your boy Kevin Thornton. You have tuned in to the Wellness Architect Show. Today's Monday, October 15th, 2018, and I have a great show for you. We are getting ready to get into we in the fourth quarter of 2018. So we're really trying to focus on fitness, wellness, and health in all aspects. So we've been talking about sugar, we've been talking about weight loss, we were talking about we're gonna have a fitness instructor next week, and today we have a chiropractor who I love. I love chiropractors. Before I lost all the weight that I had gained, I had real back issues, and I was going to a chiropractor every week. And it was funny because he'll see me pull up in the parking spot, and he could see by how I was walking where he needed to do the adjustments at, which I thought was crazy. So it's gonna be very informative. If you know how we do it, it's very interactive. So you want any questions or you have any comments, please call us at 470-251-4647. Once again, 470-251-4647. Or you could leave a comment on social media on my Facebook page, and we'll respond back to you. I have my co-host, Miss EC.
Woohoo.
How you doing, ma'am?
Good evening, everyone. Hello, Kevin. Thanks again for having me.
Thank you. And why don't you introduce our guest today?
Well, today we're talking to the wonderful and very talented, gifted Dr. Chelsea from the Atlanta
Natural Health.
Natural Health Clinic. I go there all the time. I don't know why. I just forgot to
Put
forgot
the
name
natural.
for a second. Yeah. So, and today we're going to be talking about just not only chiropractic. That's what we're going to talk. We're going to talk about nutrition. We're going to talk about the connection between the brain, the spinal cord, and the nervous system, and how important this trilogy is. I mean, you can't do anything without all three of them being involved. Every movement that you make involves your spinal cord, your nervous system, and your brain. Mm-hmm. So we'll get into how special that is and why it's really not being emphasized in commercial media or in commercial avenues, on commercial avenues. So let's get into it.
So, Dr. Chelsea, tell us who you are, what you do, and how did you get to this point where we are right now?
Okay, thank you, Kevin. My name is Dr. Chelsea Gerta. I'm, again, a chiropractor at Atlanta Natural Health Clinic in Chamblee. And I started my journey towards becoming a chiropractor when I was quite young. My mom's an operating room nurse, and she would always come home and tell us how amazing the human body is. I mean, what it's really capable of doing, and that's always fascinated me. I've also always been really interested in helping people and working with kids, so growing up I thought, oh, of course, I'm going to be like a pediatric oncological surgeon. I want to work with the really difficult cases. And then I went to work with my mom, and I had really bad allergies at the time. And I was sitting there thinking to myself while I was in surgery, first and foremost, surgery is really not something for everybody. It's a very intensive experience, and you should give your doctors and nurses a lot of credit. It's not pleasant to be in there. Second most, I was very afraid that I was going to sneeze and alter someone's life in a negative way. I mean, you can slip just the smallest amount and radically change someone's life for the negative. And I just didn't want that kind of power. So I started looking at other health avenues. I thought maybe I'd be a radiologist or a dietitian, and I just happened to be really lucky. I'm from Connecticut originally, and I was studying biology at the University of Connecticut, and I just happened to have an opportunity to go to my uncle's chiropractic office in Florida, the Frank Clinic of Chiropractic. They're in Zephyr Hills. They're amazing. I love them. His daughter works with them as well. And, he looked at me, Kevin, and he said, your body can heal itself. And that hit me so hard. Of course your body heals itself. And I just sat there and wondered why that isn't the foundation for our entire healthcare system. We really should be focused on wellness and prevention long before we ever have to worry about interventions like pharmaceutical drugs and surgery. I mean, why are we not focused on wellness? So I really didn't know what chiropractors were. I really didn't understand what he did, but I ran through college because I knew that's where I wanted to be. And so, several years later, I found myself, I actually practiced with them for a few years in Florida. I was very blessed to be able to do that. And then I relocated to Atlanta last year, and I really do focus on working with children and pregnant women and families. So I just really enjoy my life, and I like focusing on wellness.
Good. Well, I want you did go to Life University, correct?
Yes.
That's in Kennesaw, right?
It's in Marietta.
Marietta?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So that's where the school that all the chiropractors I know go to. So that's
It must be a good school.
It's the biggest chiropractic school in the world.
Yeah, it's a very good school. So all the ones I have run across, they're doing an amazing job. So when I saw her, when I first came in, I asked her, that's the first question I asked, did you go to Life? And she said yes. So if you go to Life, I know you gonna be in good hands. So let's get down to it. Erika, you want to go first?
Okay.
Ladies
well,
first.
we can go through and see what is chiropractic care. Like, what exactly are you doing? What is this? Is it because we all think about neck pain, back pain, and otherwise than that, what else could we use a chiropractor for? So please tell us, what is it?
Do you want the short answer or the long one?
We got 2 hours. You got time.
So really, I think it's a common misconception that first and foremost, chiropractors focus just on the spine, and second, then chiropractors focus primarily on pain, you know? And so what I really try to teach all of my new patients is that my focus is really the nervous system. You know, we have two parts of our nervous system primarily. We have the part that's responsible for fight or flight. You know, it accelerates your heart rate. It takes blood away from your digestive system. It gets your lungs moving faster, and it takes blood away from your extremities. That's something you need if you're going to be facing up against a tiger, right? Or running away from a bear. Okay, and then you have the rest and restore part of your nervous system. That's responsible for literally everything else, especially healing and rest and reproductive function and digestion and everything else. And our problem in today's society is we're not good at flipping back and forth between the two. There's something that the World Health Organization has coined as the epidemic of the 21st century, and it's stress.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so they coined something called sympathetic stress syndrome and chronic low-grade exposure to stress. And so what happens is people get stuck in this stress mode all the time, right? And we can't flip back into that place of healing. So the primary goal in chiropractic is to remove some of the interference to your nervous system so that you're able to self-balance between those two more efficiently.
Is that where the adjustments come in at?
Yes.
Okay.
So most chiropractors do work primarily with the spinal bones to do that, because for those who don't know, your spinal cord is just a long tail of your brain, and it does run down through the bones of your spine. So they'll use the spine and the misalignments of the bones of the spine to correct that nervous system function. But some chiropractors actually don't end up even moving the bones. They work more on an emotional level and an energetic level.
Really?
Yes. There's several different techniques, but two that are most poignant are called BEST and network spinal analysis. Those are both more emotional-based techniques.
Wow.
So when you say, I'm very intrigued.
Right.
So, so when you say, you said network
spinal analysis.
What exactly is that?
So I would not be the best person to explain that, because I tell my patients I work with baby network. I do that only with the very small children I see, and a couple adults that I see that have been through a lot of emotional and physical trauma. So I use a very light version of that with some of my patients. But essentially what it is opening channels into the nervous system, and it is the most hocus pocusy thing to watch. I can completely understand if no one's ever been to a chiropractor before. If they watch this kind of adjustment, it's a little bit weird. In fact, if you don't mind if I tell a story.
Go ahead.
I had a new patient when I was working in Florida, and she came in with her husband, who is an engineer, and she told me, she's like, I can't handle a hand adjustment. I can't even handle an instrument adjustment. I can't handle massage. That's all too much for my body. And I said, okay. So I did some of this baby network with her. The look on her husband's face during the entire adjustment, I was like, this man thinks I am from outer space. He thinks I am the craziest person. I will never see them again. She didn't come back for a long time. A month later, she shows up. She says, hey, I had pneumonia. And you know what? She saw me every week after that, because I actually was able to help her. So it looks really weird to parents, and I have to explain it really well. And there is a real quantum physics definition and explanation behind it, but I'm not the best person for that. I have several friends who do network spinal analysis full-time who could really explain that more in depth and more professionally.
Okay. For me, my question is, I'm a big proponent of chiropractors, but why is it that chiropractors don't get the same kind of respect as like medical doctors?
Right. Why? I was going to ask that as well. Like the chiropractic, kind of section or whatever gets medically ostracized.
Right.
So there's several different answers to that, and there are layers in that, right? So I think first and foremost, it's that most people believe, including medical doctors, are uneducated on what chiropractors really do. So again, they think we're working with just the spine, just neck pain, back pain. So if I'm a medical doctor and I hear, okay, chiropractors are working on neck pain, back pain, and then I hear about a chiropractor adjusting a baby, and I think that they're doing, a rough hand adjustment, I would be concerned for my patient. But that comes from a lack of knowledge, right? So that's item number one. Item number two is that chiropractic and the medical system have kind of a long, ugly history in which there was a time where actually the medical system thought we were trying to practice medicine without a license, because chiropractors didn't really explain, okay, what, we're really working with the nervous system. So they, it did seem like we were trying to practice medicine, because a lot of people bring kids to their chiropractors for asthma and acid reflux and headaches and diarrhea and constipation and so many things that are side effects of chiropractic care. When you make the nervous system better, the body heals itself better. But the medical system saw that as chiropractors practicing medicine without a license. So for a little while there was some ugliness there. There was a lot of misunderstanding. And I really think it comes from that lack of knowledge, that lack of understanding of what we really do. But I think it's important for people to know, and again, some people don't know, that chiropractors actually get just as much diagnostic education as medical doctors. Up until a certain point, our curriculum is exactly the same. The difference becomes that we don't get the pharmacological training. We're not trained in prescription drugs, and we actually spend more time working on actual clinical treatment and psychology and things like that.
Which I believe is needed in wellness. Right. But then too, on the flip side, they might have more knowledge on the pharmacology side, but you guys have more knowledge on nutrition.
Exactly.
Because you guys actually take nutrition classes, and in turn they do not.
Right.
So you go to a medical So you go to a medical doctor, and you're going to let a medical doctor who has no nutrition classes give you a meal plan, and he doesn't really have a clue. But the chiropractor does. Or and I know a couple chiropractors that used to be in my spin class. They did nutritional stuff for their patients, but they said it wore them out, because a lot of times it just got frustrating to see that they're giving them the information and they're not following through. So then they would then contract it out to me and say, okay, Kevin, can you work with them, because you could probably be more nurturing to them that I can, because I got to do all my other patients, stuff like that. So I just think, if people know the real narrative about chiropractic and what they all offer, they would go see it too. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
So when you say that you're working with the nervous system, now it's still the nervous system is still a mysterious thing.
Absolutely.
And so I think I've heard it like it's internal dialogue, right? And it's internal dialogue, I guess, between the brain and the body. So we're talking about the brain-body connection. And so it's also how you interact with your external circumstances as well.
Yes.
So can you kind of explain that relationship, or help us with that when you say nervous system? Because when people say nervous system, people, I don't know what people think. You know what I mean? But every hair follicle, has a nerve ending. So that's how extensive the nervous system actually is.
Exactly. So the biggest thing is I equate the nervous system to being like your body's supercomputer, right? So your brain is kind of your hard drive. It's the main frame of your body, right? It's deciding what and where and when and how, not just of the major functions we think of, but down to cellular interaction and gene expression can be controlled by the brain. So the way I explain it to patients is that you have your central computer here, and then you essentially have USB cords going to every other part of your body. Your nerves are like USB cords, and they branch off, and then they branch off again, and they keep branching off until you get down to the hair follicle level of cells. So your brain is orchestrating everything that happens, both internally and externally, and how we interact with our environment is detected not only by the brain, but by the hair follicle cells. You know, you get outward stimulus from the hair follicles. You get it from temperature sensors, from pressure sensors. There's something called proprioception in your feet and in your hands that tells you where you are in space. So like, for example, people with neuropathy who can't feel their feet, they have balance issues, right? It's because they're not getting that feedback. People who are amputees, they don't get that proprioceptive feedback, and that's why it's so difficult for them to acclimate to a prosthetic. You know, so you're constantly getting input and output information. So I would say the hair follicle cells are kind of like the touch screen on a tablet.
Wow.
Right? And so that's how you're getting that interaction in between the two. Does that make sense?
So what could you do for someone who has neuropathy?
Neuropathy or neuralgia.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of different kinds of nerve diseases. So it depends, Kevin, on how they ended up with that neuropathy, what it's caused from, and how long they've had it.
With this, let's say diabetes.
Sometimes. So the answer to that is I tell people all the time, I don't treat anything except misalignments of the spine or muscle tissue causing nervous system interference, what we as chiropractors call the subluxation, that interferes with nerve activity. But as a whole, we know that people who get adjusted, people who have the interference removed from their nervous system, or at least reduced, they heal better. So it's hard to say, somebody comes to me with diabetic neuropathy, I'll tell them, you might feel better, you might not. I don't have control over that, but I know your body's going to heal better.
Okay.
But by the way, you should also talk to Dr. Hurd about nutrition and how he can help your diabetes with nutrition and with supplementation to alleviate it that way. But it depends, and this is another good example of the USB cord example. We've all kinked our USB cord, right? You've had it to a point where either it made it harder for your phone to charge, or sometimes it even warped your battery, right? Sometimes you can straighten that USB cord out and it will resume functioning like it did before, and sometimes it's internally damaged, right? And you have to get a new cord. So especially in cases of nerve damage like neuropathy, it depends on how long that nerve's been impacted as to whether or not it's able to heal.
Okay. Wow.
Wow.
Nerve system is complicated, so much more than we understand.
So while we're on the nervous system, so you're saying, could someone with a lot of emotional issues and not really, I guess maybe have a certain type of pain or ailment, could they come to a chiropractor if you're dealing with that type of, I guess, type of system?
Yeah, absolutely. So in chiropractic, we talk about the 3 causes of stress. We call them the 3 T's, and they're thoughts, traumas, and toxins, right? So that can mean literally anything we encounter during our day that's causing stress for our body. It could be sitting at a desk all day. It could be, having to lift your kids 10 times a day. It could be pushing the vacuum cleaner, or eating McDonald's, or getting a vaccine, or being exposed to toxic chemicals. It could be getting in a fight with your best friend, or having deeply rooted emotional issues. Your brain knows the difference, but once it gets outside of your spinal cord, outside of your nervous system, your body doesn't understand the subtleties there. So your body's just still perceiving that as stress and activates that fight or flight system. Does that make sense?
Wow.
So what chiropractic is doing is saying, okay, your fight or flight system is overactivated. Let's remove the interference wherever that may be and allow your body to reestablish that balance. Does that make sense?
Makes a lot of sense.
Long way. So that is the difference between going to a chiropractor as opposed to a pain specialist.
And not to say that there aren't chiropractors who do focus on pain management. Again, there's so many different kinds of chiropractors out there, and there are people who specialize. For example, one of my very good friends specializes in working with pregnant women and children after car accidents. And so she'll work on again, removing that nervous system interference, but also treating their pain. So someone who works in a pain type of system in chiropractic will do a little bit more with pain management techniques, whereas in my office, people more so come in for wellness care and mild pain and things like that.
Okay.
Whereas like I prefer, if I'm, for example, if someone comes into my office or one of my patients has been quite hurt, I might refer them to a physical therapist for co-management. I might refer them to the acupuncturist, and often they go out for additional imaging like an x-ray or an MRI.
Okay, and I know you're not an acupuncturist yourself, but
Sure.
I know you do go see one.
Mm-hmm.
Can you explain what an acupuncturist does and the importance of it? Because I'm a big proponent of it, but I don't think a lot of people who listening are aware of it. So, and I know that that's part of something that's in your whole holistic realm. So, could you please let them know what that is?
Sure. I could give you a baby example of what acupuncture is. David, if you're watching this, I'm so sorry. My very good friend David is an acupuncturist and a doctorate in Chinese medicine here in the Atlanta area.
Okay.
And so, from my understanding, and this could be totally off base, what acupuncture does is work with the energy of the body, being that through literally the electrical system, and the nerve system is an electrical system, right? So looking at it that way, but also the circulation. So one thing he does whenever I see him is he checks my pulses, and he's able to read different organ systems based on how your pulses are. Okay, and so then the acupuncture points that he's stimulating are to stimulate the blood vessels in alignment with that, to make sure that, for example, if your gallbladder meridian is out of alignment, he's saying, okay, well, we're going to stimulate blood vessel points or points near the blood vessels that activate the gallbladder. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But it's not just the gallbladder itself. It could be just all of the things that are connected to the gallbladder. That's my basic understanding. I actually wrote a comment to somebody on Facebook today because she was asking in a group if it's okay for Christians to go see an acupuncturist. And I said, well, you know, it's not really about belief. It's not a faith healing, and it doesn't have any religious connotation. It's just a physical treatment.
But it's funny that I find you said that question, because when I was going to a chiropractor, or even with meditation or that kind of stuff, I've had people say that I practice two forms of religion. You know, I believe in God, but then also I do the Western stuff, and they say that I can't do both. I have to pick and choose one.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting.
That is interesting.
So
I've never heard that.
I would say, you know, there's always professionals in every realm that bring religion into what they're doing, you know, whether that be politics, whether that be healthcare, whether that be, you know, just being in retail. There's always someone who brings religion into it in their sphere. But as a whole, I wouldn't say that any of those things are related to religion. I know like yoga and meditation tend to in particular get a bad rap because they'll play, you know, meditations in Sanskrit, and people think that, you know, it's worshiping a different god or something like that, when actually really it's saying something along the lines of like, I am healed and I am healing. And it's really not about, it's not about the language it's in, it's not about worship, it's about, okay, positive affirmation, for example, meditation and things like that. So I think there's a lot of garbled messages that happen there, but it's really, there's, let me be very clear, as far as I know and as far as the professionals I've experienced, there's no connection between Eastern medicine and religion. Right. So there shouldn't be any hang-ups there.
Okay.
I mean, again, there's practitioners who bring things in every direction, but yeah, for anybody who's concerned about that.
Okay.
It's a really good question.
Thank you.
I mean, I guess so. You know, people would interfere with it.
Yeah, I've had two people say it to me. One person didn't even know me from Adam, but I guess the energy that I gave her, she was like, you know, you practice two forms of religion, and you can't do both, so you have to choose one. Because, you know, and then somebody else who I did know, she said, you know, she know that I like meditation. She know I do whole holistic type stuff, and she feels that's like Eastern medicine, Eastern religion, and that I can't do both. And so I had to know that she feels I need to choose.
Wow.
I'm under the impression that you should do what you need to do in order to heal yourself.
Absolutely.
Well, and I would say on top of it, I know people who are mildly uncomfortable even with that knowledge. And so someone very close to me, when she's going through her yoga practice as a Christian, she chooses to devote her practice to God. So again, if that feels appropriate, that's another way for people to kind of get past that mental hurdle, because absolutely, Erika, at the end of the day, you have to do what's right for your body.
Right.
And that's honoring to the spirit. I mean, we could talk about that for hours, I'm sure. But, you know, I think at the end of the day, you're supposed to be healthy. You're supposed to be loved. You're supposed to be cherished, and cherishing your body is part of that.
Absolutely. So what are common ailments that you see in your office? Like, well, I guess we should ask what type of therapies or care you practice in your office, and then we could say, well, then what are some common things that you see, or you know?
Yeah, for sure. So again, there's like over 300 different chiropractic techniques, right? So there's a very large diversity in chiropractic. Some people do primarily hand adjustments. Some people do primarily instrument-based adjustments. Again, some people work with more of the emotional techniques. I do a little bit of a mix, but I err on the side of being pretty light, because a lot of the patients I see are pregnant moms, are babies, are kids. So obviously, if you're under the age of 10, I'm not doing any kind of hand adjustment on you. I'm working primarily with an instrument called an activator or an impulse. So they're very, very light stimuli. They use vibration to create an adjustment, and they're very, very, very gentle. If you're under the age of 3 to 5, depending on the maturity of the child, I'm using my pinky and about the amount of force you would use to touch your eyelid or press into a grape tomato. And then on adults, I use a variety of different techniques, including drop table or the Thompson technique, manual or diversified hand adjustments, and then also instrument adjustments, just depending on what's right for that person.
So why children? What is it? Why do children or kids, or what's the youngest that you see?
So I've seen babies less than a week old.
Oh,
really?
Yeah. You'd be, and a lot. I get that face a lot. So if you think about it, the birth process is absolutely amazing, right? It is a natural, beautiful thing, and thankfully we have an incredible natural birth community here in Atlanta. But even then, the birth process is really stressful, both for the baby and the mom, okay? So that's premise number one. Premise number two is that we sit all day, every day. And in a normal system, your pelvis is supposed to be able to move all day long.
Right.
And it has 3 parts, right? You've got the big bones of the pelvis on either side, and you have your tailbone in the middle, right? And all 3 of those are supposed to articulate properly, and your tailbone's supposed to do a figure 8 motion as those bones move all day, every day. When you sit, you force your tailbone up into the middle of that system, and it gets stuck. And if you sit in Atlanta traffic, you're tightening the muscles of your right leg by hitting the gas or hitting the brake, and that compounds the issue, brings that right ilium, that right quote-unquote hip down, and that compounds the issue with the tailbone being stuck. So a lot of moms, when they go through the birth process, their system's already compromised and under tension, and that makes the birth more difficult, okay? So that's premise number 2. Now, premise number 3 is if there's any kind of birth intervention like forceps, like cesarean delivery, something other than just the normal birth of the child, including if the OB or the nurse or the midwife is pulling on the baby's neck, that's another stress for that baby. And in a cesarean section, it can be up to 90 to 100 pounds of force on that baby's neck. We're talking about a 7 or 8 pound infant. That's a lot of force, right? And again, that comes from the fact that the mom has already been compromised, her pelvis has been compromised, and it's been hard to get that baby out, right? So a lot of times those infants, even just from birth, and even in a normal natural birth, can have a lot of neurological shift, and that's why parents choose to bring them in for a wellness adjustment or an early intervention before there becomes a problem. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah.
So even like driving in the Atlanta traffic, and a lot of times,
And we all are suffering from this. we're gonna get you to Atlanta Natural Health.
right? Especially when sometimes you might, as a driver, you might lean to one side of your
You
body,
don't even notice that.
and then that puts more pressure on one side of the body compared to others. So then when you get out the car, you are favoring one side compared to other.
Absolutely.
Right.
And then just the stress of the activity in general,
Right.
Being stressed that you're stuck, being stressed that you're not getting home as fast as you'd like to or wherever you're going, being stressed because you're late, being stressed because the driver in front of you or to the side of you is not paying attention or they're almost causing an accident. I mean, all of that, again, feeds right back into your nervous system.
Wow.
So even just, even if you sit perfectly and drive your car in the most beautiful way,
Right.
it's still not good for you. I tell people if they drive more than 30 minutes a day, they need to be getting adjusted.
So, a friend of mine said, we are very reactive. So a lot of times we go to a chiropractor after we have an ailment or something like that. And he said the reality is that we should go on a regular basis, not just because you hurt, but you just need to go based off what the stuff you just saying, based on the driving, the stress.
Are you stressed?
The stress.
So it is about relieving stress from the nervous system.
From the nervous system, yeah. And again, just in order for your body to be able to better adapt to those external stimuli, be able to adapt better, have your reaction time better when you're narrowly missing that car accident, having your reaction time better when you're playing soccer and you're trying to score the goal, having a better awareness or better tolerance for when somebody's not nice to you. I mean, all of those things play into that stress role, right? So I tell my patients all the time, I'm like, if I didn't have any other issues, I would get adjusted at least once a month just for stress. And my stress level's about here most days, despite my attempts to get rid of it. So
Wow.
I get adjusted a lot more than that. I get adjusted pretty much weekly myself.
Wow.
Yeah.
But you're
Yeah.
saying?
Well,
Okay.
it depends on the person and what they've
Okay.
been through. I mean, I have patients who have horrific scoliosis, and they come in really frequently because they are just in constant pain because they've been down that road for so long and their spine can't change now. I have patients under a lot of stress who come in weekly. I have a lot of kids who just throw themselves around the way kids do. One of my patients is a midwife, and she was at my office this weekend telling stories about her son who just, it's like he tries to make it so his mom has to bring him in. It's like he's trying to set a record for the number of times he can come in, sort of thing, because he just bangs himself around all over the place.
Wow.
Just being a boy. So it's, you asked about kids, Erika. That's really why I like to see kids, because if you're seeing the kids as they grow, they're much more likely to be able to adapt better and handle those stressful situations, including physical stressors, better as adults.
Wow.
I tell new patients a lot, new parents a lot, about my cousin. When her daughter was learning to walk for the first time, you could literally see it. She didn't crawl, she scooted, which was a whole other thing. But she would scoot for a while, and then she'd stand up, and she'd walk for a little ways until she fell down. And you could see her trying to stand back up. She wanted to stand back up, but her pelvis wouldn't let her once she'd fallen down on her tailbone until she got adjusted. And then she'd pop right back up and keep going. So it can be literally something that's even impacted by kids learning to walk.
Wow. So how is it that the chiropractor and the massage therapist are like aligned together? Because I usually see in most chiropractic offices you have the chiropractor in one part of the office and then you get the massage therapist. Why is that most of the time, for those who don't know?
Sure. I'll answer that in terms of, it's the same reason I love physical therapists, because I can create neurological change. Sometimes I can even create structural change, asking the bones to stay where they're at. But here's the thing, then you have muscles and tendons and ligaments and fascia, all the soft tissue that likes to go and try to go back into its pattern and pull that alignment back out of place, right? So it becomes a twofold issue. Again, factoring into the stress. You know, people hold so much tension in their muscles. I mean, where do you hold your stress? For a lot of people, it's in their upper back, and they have that muscle tension, right? So then the massage therapist is able to help that out, help them relax more, because of course massage also really helps stimulate that rest and restore part of the nervous system, which is required for healing. And then for the same reason, I like physical therapists, because they're retraining the muscles after the muscles have been relaxed to do the things that they're supposed to do, to function the way that they're supposed to.
Okay, that makes sense.
Wow.
Yeah, see,
So much. Who knew that this was all involved in chiropractic?
So what part does nutrition play in chiropractic services?
Yeah, because you see, when you see a lot of chiropractic buildings, you see nutrition as well. So what does it have to do with, what does nutrition have to do with spinal health?
Yeah. Can you drive your car without fuel?
No.
No. So we want healing to happen, right? But if we don't have the building blocks for healing, body's not going to be able to heal. If you need carbon and nitrogen and carbohydrates, and you don't have carbon and nitrogen and carbohydrates, you're not getting that chemical reaction happening. You're not getting that healing pathway happening. Our diet in this country is so far from what food actually is. You know, people eat for pleasure, and don't get me wrong, eating for pleasure is definitely part of our society, and that's part of the emotional side of eating and can be a really positive thing, but we're eating things that come from boxes that don't even resemble food anymore.
Right.
What is a Pop-Tart? Tell me, what is a Pop-Tart, and what in a Pop-Tart is necessary for you and your child for healing?
Right.
What is Mountain Dew?
Sugar.
What part of
We
that?
talked about this.
It's sugar and
Yes,
chemicals.
yes,
I mean,
yes.
if you read the ingredients of Mountain Dew, it's startling. So we've gotten to a point where we're eating food that's not even food, but on top of that, we also have food that has been farmed in soil that's really been tapped out of nutrients. There's this amazing chiropractic researcher, his name is Dan Murphy, and he was talking at Life University actually 2 weeks ago about how the magnesium level in our food has decreased 90% in 2 generations.
Wow.
Let that sit with you for a minute. 90% in 2 generations. So not only are we not eating food, but we're not getting the appropriate nutrients out of food.
Absolutely.
So that's where a lot of chiropractors will not only work with people on diet, but with food-based supplements as well.
Right.
Or even synthetic supplements, depending on what's necessary for that person to restore their
Absolutely,
body.
and that's very true. And that's one of the things I tell clients to do is, you can take a shower in the morning and go to work, but at night, to take a bath and put Epsom salt and baking soda and some kind of essential oil and soak in there for like 30 minutes and let the Epsom salt, which has a lot of magnesium in it, soak into your system. So that's a way to get the magnesium that you're deficient in.
Yeah, it's a really good way. And it's especially important because another thing Dan was talking about is the fact that we're exposed to electromagnetic frequencies all the time, like your cell phone, your computer, the ambient Wi-Fi. Now both of the parks I go to have ambient Wi-Fi everywhere, which is super cool if you're trying to not kill your data plan, but it's not good for your cells because what it does is actually electrically forces open the calcium ion channels in your cells. And so that actually blocks your magnesium uptake because you can only have a certain number of positive ions that you take in and a certain number of negatives. So if you have those calcium ions forced open, it's actually preventing you from absorbing the magnesium you need.
Wow.
Yeah. And for some people, I am a huge proponent of the Epsom salt bath, but for some people that might not even be enough because that magnesium citrate or magnesium calcite isn't able to cross the blood-brain barrier. So that's a whole other issue in itself. We're not getting the forms of magnesium that we need to cross into the brain that are important for depression and anxiety and neurodegenerative disorders like Parkinson's and Alzheimer's and things like that. Migraines.
Exactly. Because I know that magnesium, the lack of magnesium plays a part in all that. And so that's why, I really try to find different ways to get them to get magnesium into their system since they're missing it in the diet because the food is not doing it.
Yeah.
So
Organic leafy greens. Swiss chard is a really good source of
Yeah.
magnesium.
it is. And so that's why I try to tell them too, that to rotate the greens that you do, not use the same ones all the time. So do this to be open to the Swiss chard. They also use collards, watercress, and all that kind of stuff. And just take 2 different types of greens and make your salads out of that, and then rotate different ones. So that way you can get the nutrients that you need.
Totally.
So is there, do you guys give them diets to go on?
Depends on the chiropractor.
Okay.
I actually work very little with diet myself. I talk to my parents a lot about the impact that food allergens have on their kids. I don't know how much you know about like ADHD and autism, but for kids with neurological disorders like ADHD, or they're on the autism spectrum, dairy and wheat are kind of like cocaine for their system. It is addictive, and it's like a kid speedball, and it will lead to so many worse behaviors. And food dyes also. Food dyes are like cocaine for kids, especially kids with neurological issues. So pretty much any product that's marketed to kids. Funny how that works.
Goodness.
If you think about how much food dyes are in. So I really focus more so on the food allergy side of things and the experience I've had with that in my journey. But Dr. Hurd really works on doing a food diary with the people that it's appropriate with, or doing supplementation.
So since you do like
Dr. Hurd, Dr. Hurd is the other
chiropractor I work with.
But the other chiropractor who also works at the Atlanta Natural Health Clinic.
Okay.
Excuse me. Sorry about that.
Do you recommend the kids use essential oils for like the ADHD and all that kind of stuff?
With discretion.
Okay.
When you work with essential oils with kids, it's appropriate. It's necessary to make sure that the essential oil is of the right purity, and that you're actually getting the form of the plant that you think you are, and that you're getting the appropriate dilution ratio. So I wouldn't use the same dosage on an adult that I would on a child. So like, for example, I had a sinus issue last week. I was putting drops of peppermint oil on my tongue. Like, it felt like every half hour, but it was definitely not that frequent. That's not something I would do to a child because it would be hazardous to their system. And you have to look at your sourcing. Like lavender, for example, has been suggested to cause estrogen dominance in children, meaning like, early puberty, or, female characteristics in male children, things like that. So you have to be really careful about where you're getting it from and what appropriate ratio you're using. But otherwise, yes, actually, one of the big companies out there called doTERRA, they're one of the more popular companies. They just came out with a special designated kids line for that.
Really?
So there are people who are paying attention to that.
Okay, because actually a friend of mine, she's a nurse, and her niece and nephew, they're twins, and I think the boy has ADHD, and they use doTERRA.
It is a good company.
And she could tell the difference, how it has helped him with his ADHD.
But they diffuse it, or
diffuse it,
diffuse
yeah. And like, he can't go anywhere without it. So even if they leave the mom and go stay with the dad, they diffuse it with him and all that kind of stuff. So that's why I was wondering too.
Yeah, and you can do roller balls and things like that too for kids that are in school and things like that. So it's just about finding that appropriate balance. But yeah, totally. I think so I don't know how much people know about essential oils, but the amygdala, the part of the brain that's really responsible for emotional processing, is very sensitive to smell. It's one of the reasons that smell is one of emotions and memories connected to smell are so powerful. Like, I always think of the cartoon Anastasia. She remembers her grandmother's peppermint lotion. That's the third time I did that today. It's because the amygdala is so sensitive to smell, so it also helps with our emotional processing. So one thing that actually a friend of mine suggested is diffusing wild orange in the car when you're in traffic, because it helps with your mood, and it will literally help you rewire your neural pathways. Some people use it when they do meditation and they're using positive affirmations, and it can actually help you rewire your brain to use those pathways more often, to potentiate those pathways.
As opposed to the destructive ones that we use.
Turn those light switches on effectively.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
So do you see a lot of children who have neurological issues?
More and more every year.
And what do you think that is? Why do you think that is?
Are we on camera? There are so many things that contribute to that. So according to the CDC study in 2011, which is the most recent data I've seen, there are 1 in 10 children in the United States with some kind of neurological disorder, whether that be ADHD, autism, some other kind of developmental issue. I've seen studies that suggest that maternal testosterone has to do with it. So again, moms being stressed triggers testosterone production, and that affects whether or not their child has ADHD. A lot of it has to do with protein balance, with inflammation. Again, inflammation can be caused by stress. Inflammation can be caused by food and the toxins in our environment. Some people suggest that vaccines have a role to play with it. I would just file that again under chemical load and how much our bodies are able to process out in terms of the chemicals we see and we use. And again, food allergens. So it's really hard to know what is the one specific trigger. What I do know is that kids with neurological issues do better getting under chiropractic care. They do better with destimulatory therapy, like with their occupational therapist. So for example, a common occupational therapy is dry brushing, which helps desensitize their skin, help their nervous system react less to that stimulation. Because at the end of the day, what's happening to these kids is as if someone just turned up the volume on their nervous system to 100. So they are reacting to everything in their environment, and their brains are more aware of the things that most of us ignore. Like, we ignore the fact that we wear clothes most of the time, right? You can't feel every inch of your clothing on your skin. A kid with a sensory processing disorder, it's like somebody cranked up that volume and they feel every inch of the clothing on their skin. And that's one of the things that makes them irritable and hyperactive and act out.
Wow.
Yeah.
How do you better know this. How do you discover stuff like that?
Scientists who are a lot smarter than I am.
Wow. And so do you see that in your office sometimes?
Absolutely.
And so how do they get adjusted?
So kids with sensory issues get adjusted usually the way that babies do, or sometimes even less. It's a very light amount of stimulus, and sometimes I can't even contact their spine because that's too much for them. Sometimes I work on an elbow or a knee or something that's still stimulating their nervous system. It's still feedback, but in a much more passive way. Does that make sense?
Yes.
That is crazy.
It's crazy until you see it. But I have an 18-year-old. He's actually, I've not seen him in a while, but he came in for his first adjustment, and he has ADHD. You just watched him melt. I started with his feet. I worked my way up his spine. And you just saw him the more I interacted with his nervous system. And I mean, very gently, with an instrument, very minimally invasive. But he just melted into the table. You could see his body relaxing because no one had ever turned down his volume before. And by the time he stood up, he was like, "This is the best thing ever." And I mean, I thought he was going to fall asleep in my waiting room while he was waiting for his mom to pay. I mean, it was that kind of situation. So it sounds so crazy to hear about it in theory, but if anybody's ever curious, like, I encourage you to go watch your friend's adjustment. Go watch your friend's kids get adjusted, because once you see it and understand that it's happening, it's amazing.
It's the best thing ever in life to me. It is. It's like, because you feel like a brand new person after that adjustment. And it's like, they come in and you just lay there at first, and then they're assessing the body, and then they already know, okay, I gotta do the neck, the upper back, lower back, and he make you sit up a little bit, and he just twist that neck real fast, and they do all the other stuff. And then by the time, like you said, by the time I got finished, I was almost asleep.
Yeah.
It was like almost as good as a massage.
Because you turned on that rest and restore part of your nervous system.
And
because it finally was released.
And I couldn't figure out why people would, What? Because my friend used to get adjusted when we were in high school.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, you go to a chiropractor? Like,
especially in
high school. But I mean, she was like, my neck was hurting this morning. I feel so much better. And you restoring that communication.
Mm-hmm. Well, and not to mention the fact that once you progress to the point of pain and stiffness, it's like feeling there's a vice on your neck. I've suffered with migraines since I was a teenager. I mean, I really struggled for a long time, and I was talking to my mom about it one day. I had made a video for Facebook. She's like, I didn't even realize how bad it was affecting you, and because I just pushed through it. Right. But I was taking ibuprofen 4 or 5 times a week when I was in high school just because of my neck pain and my headaches, and like I could not. I've had migraines so bad that I've vomited. I've had them so bad that I've had to lay down in a dark room. And I've had patients that have had them much worse than I have.
Yeah, that was me.
But it's debilitating. And having that pressure built up in your neck is just, there's nothing like it. You don't understand it if you haven't had it. But I mean, literally, you watch the cartoons and you see, his head about to pop off because he's so mad. Like, that's what that feels like. Or it feels like somebody's shoved a spike into your brain. I mean, it's awful.
So how has chiropractic therapy helped you with your migraines?
Oh yeah, and so for me, it has to do with my stress level.
Okay.
So as long as I'm not overwhelmingly stressed, I get adjusted once a week, once every 2 weeks, I have no migraines. Now, there are a couple fluke times of the year where I'm having a lot of physical stress or a lot of emotional stress. I'm doing more. That definitely becomes more of an issue for me. I might have them once or twice a month. But it's decreased the severity of my migraines. It's decreased the frequency of my migraines. I don't have to go home and lay down anymore. I may still have to take ibuprofen if I'm having a rough day or have to push through it. But it's nothing like it used to be.
Okay. Because I have a friend who suffers from it as well, and I think hers is stemming from, like you said, stress. So what would you, since you've been in that same boat, what would you recommend to her? Because I saw on Facebook one day that she's like extremely stressed out, and she could feel the migraine getting ready to come on. So what would you recommend for somebody like that to do?
It's never a single focused decision, and that's I think where people get frustrated. It's like I can't guarantee if somebody gets adjusted that their migraine's going to go away or that they won't have migraines anymore, because I can't control that outcome because we're just working with the nervous system. But I will tell you, as a whole, chiropractic is pretty famous for working with migraines. So getting adjusted or at least getting evaluated by a chiropractor would be step one. Step two is definitely to see an acupuncturist, because I will tell you again, David Jones has helped me through some rough migraines when my stress level has gotten too high, or I've not taken care of myself and I've not gotten adjusted when I should. And then step three is just getting that stress level down, work on stress management techniques, because that's going to be the thing that saves you in the long run. That's what I tell my patients all the time. That's what keeps them from having to come into the office as often.
So what is that? What is stress management techniques?
Anything that gets your stress level down, right? So again, we have to view that from the lens of the physical, chemical, and emotional, okay? So like for one, especially for women, like taking out the chemicals in your body products, choosing products that don't have parabens and phthalates, choosing glass over plastic, because bisphenol A, BPA, that's found in plastic is an estrogen mimicker, and that can affect women and men negatively.
Can it cause cancer as well?
I've seen studies that link it to cancer, yes.
Which is why she has a glass.
I got my glass.
She has a glass.
And I knocked it over.
Water.
So decreasing your toxic load is one of them. Wow. Decreasing your physical stressors. If you're somebody who sits at a desk for work, getting a ball or getting up every half an hour or whatever you can agree with your boss about. Getting a standing desk, getting a modified standing desk so you can at least stand part of the day. And then actually working on your emotional stress. Are there people in your life that really don't need to be there. You know,
Absolutely.
you got to put yourself first 100% of the time. Can you try meditation? There are a lot of amazing meditations apps out there, right?
It is.
Personally, I'm a fan of Insight Timer. I don't know about y'all.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, I like that
Thanks
one.
for that
That's my favorite one. I also really like Calm.
I like that one too.
Yep, they're another good one. And both of those are free as far as I'm aware of. Doing yoga is also really good for stress. Even if somebody's opposed to meditation, they can do deep breathing.
Right.
There is nothing against your religion in deep breathing. And actually, there's something called square breathing that was developed by the Marines for use in combat, which is pretty amazing because it's something that's been proven to decrease your stress level so that they could then flip that around and keep going. So there are so many different things you can do. Improving your diet, all of those are stress management. But it depends on what kind of stress you have the most of, right?
Okay. And what does diet have to do with my stress level?
So again, that comes back to your toxic load, right? So first and foremost, the question is, are you eating food that's food? Second, are you giving your body the nutrients it needs? Like, you need different kinds of vegetables. You know, Kevin, you mentioned rotating your greens, eating vegetables that are seasonal, because when vegetables are in season, they're going to be much higher in nutrients than vegetables grown out of season or from a different part of the world.
Wow.
You know, all of those things factor into it, because when you have those vitamins that you need, you're still going to be able to process your stress better, because on a chemical level, you have the chemicals you need to process chemicals out of your body, right?
Okay.
Everything comes down to those chemical reactions. We forget about it because we're these big, huge, functional beings. But at the end of the day, it's all about electricity and acid-base reactions.
Wow.
That's all we are.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're going to take a short break. We're going to play a video that Dr. Chelsea has suggested to us. And we're going to give it a few minutes. Give us about 3 minutes, and we will be right back. It's How Stress Affects Your Life by Dr. Bruce Limpton. Stay tuned.
All right, and we're back. So while we was watching the video, I did see a question on my Facebook Live from Robert Gallagher, and he wanted to ask Dr. Chelsea, do you work with energy fields in your work in chiropractic care?
Yeah. So I do in very small doses, and that's part of the network spinal analysis work that I do.
Okay.
The long answer to that is that any kind of manual therapy and anything involving touch involves energy fields as well, because there's this really amazing documentary, and if you haven't seen it, I'd highly recommend it. It's called What the Bleep Do We Know? That's actually the name. And it's really about the quantum physics and the energy between human interaction. I'm going to quote this horribly wrong, but I'm pretty sure what I learned is that the energy field of the heart is 60 meters. So there's actually electrical energy, residual electrical energy from the heart that ranges out 60 meters. That could be a terrible statistic, but I'm pretty sure that's what it is. So anyway, the point of that being, we're all interacting without even interacting. But once you add touch on top of that, it has even more impact. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Wow. Okay. I hope that answer helps you out, Mr. Robert. But keep listening to the show. If you have any more questions, we'll check back into you. But that was one he said he was really enjoying the show, but he really wanted to know that. So, you have any questions for her?
Well, I mean, we could just get into what you all do at the Natural Health,
Atlanta
Natural
Health Clinic.
It's Monday.
It's Monday. And I go to this place. Like, we're going to get it together.
It's all good. So at Atlanta Natural Health, we really focus on family wellness care. So again, we try to work with couples pre-conception. We try to work with moms through pregnancy. We try to see kids for wellness visits long before they ever have problems. But of course, we see, adults in varying stages of conditions as well. We have several different things that we do, chiropractic being first and foremost, and that's really the only thing that I really focus on in the office, except for, again, small discussions of diet. Dr. Philip Hurd actually opened the Atlanta Natural Health Clinic in 1983 as a massage therapist, and he, through his work in massage, found chiropractic and decided to go to chiropractic school and do that. And so he's been an owning partner and an operator as a chiropractor since then. And he also does something called nutrition response testing, which is something we're talking about, which uses muscle testing to test and clinical knowledge and the patient's health history to decide, okay, if someone is deficient and does need supplementation, do they have what supplement is appropriate for them or what supplements, and what the appropriate dosage is for them on a day-to-day basis. So someone 1 week might be taking 4 doses of a specific nutrient called ferrofood from Standard Process, which is an organically bound iron, which is one that I actually recommend a lot to my patients, especially pregnant women, because if you take iron normally, it's hard for your body to digest because iron is a metal, right? And especially if it's a synthetic iron supplement, it's hard to digest. It causes a lot of constipation, and so pregnant moms stop taking it because they're already constipated because there's a baby pressing on their intestines. Whereas this is plant-based, or it's bound to the plant material, so it's more easily assimilated by the body. So it's just one example.
What's the name of that again?
It's called ferrofood. Because ferro meaning iron, and food.
And where can you find that?
You have to get it from a license.
Yes, it's something that's not available over the counter. So that is kind of piggybacking on your question about why chiropractors do nutrition. We're able to access pharmaceutical grade nutrients that aren't available to the general public, like at GNC.
Okay. That's similar to what the guy said yesterday.
Okay. Nice.
Okay.
Nice.
And I've gone to Atlanta Natural Health Clinic. I went actually for the nutritional response test, and I mean it has really, it tells you where you are. You know what I mean? Like as far as, like she said, it uses a muscle testing to see which system is operating on low energy, and that's how they can, I guess, assess to what supplements that you may need.
Yeah, what's most important for you right now in real time. So like you might take 4 Pharaoh food this week, but then next week as your body assimilates it better, whatever systems that's being used by starts functioning better, you might be able to drop it down to 2. Or you might need 6 if you're going through a higher period of stress. So it's very specific for that patient and where they are at in real time. Kevin, you'd asked me before we started just about the difference between doing something like that and doing blood work. And my answer in the short is that some people do blood work, and that's amazing. I mean, actually, my cousin, Dr. Celeste Frank Holstein, and her dad, Dr. Mark Frank, both do blood work and do nutrition and blood work that way. And they're able to show their patients in their blood work the changes to that nutritional chemistry. I think the real difference when someone decides to take one route or the other depends on the patient population they're working with, you know, what kind of insurance people have, how much disposable income people have, because doing blood work is expensive.
Right.
And unfortunately, you can't run blood panels like every 30 days. You know, first of all, the insurance generally won't approve it, and second of all, it's expensive. Versus if you're doing something like nutrition response testing, you don't have that hard data to show your medical doctor. You don't have that blood panel saying, hey, you know what, your iron count did go up, you know, 4 points or something. But you're able to monitor how you feel.
Okay.
So it kind of depends on where someone's at with their health and what their goals are as to whether they do that one versus another.
Okay. Because I know when I talked to him yesterday, and when I saw him, and I was telling him I was preparing to talk to you, and I was trying to get, I forgot the difference. And then, so when he told me that he does the blood work, I asked him, are you a firm believer of eat right for your blood type? And he said that there is some correlation to that.
What is that? Eat right.
So Eat Right for Your Blood Type is a book that's out that pretty much tells you what foods you need to eat and what foods you need not to eat based on your blood type. So for me, example, I am O positive. So then therefore, you know, I can go vegan, but it'll be difficult because my body my body does well with meats. And so then somebody who might be B positive, they can't have chicken because their body don't process chicken very well. And I know this to be true because a young lady I know is B positive, and she stopped eating chicken when she found out. And one particular day, they was going to watch some TV show, and they bought some wings, and she couldn't process it. It pretty much got stuck in her throat. So from that point forward, she stopped. So, you know, even the chiropractor said he pretty much, you know, from what he has done with it, it rings true to him. So that's why, you know, and when I went to nutrition school, that's why they never really push one type of diet, because, you know, each person's biology makeup is different. So you gotta do it by biochemistry. So, you know, some people might be good for veganism, some people may not. Some people might be better off for a zone diet or pescatarian, but you gotta go back to the diet. And that's why a lot of times I do ask for their blood type, so I can get an idea of what I should give them, what I should not give them. So yeah.
It's really important. I'm not as familiar with that myself, but my assistant Allie actually swears by it. But you know, there's still gradations even within that, right?
Yep.
So she's gonna laugh at me when she sees this because she tells me all the time what her blood type is, but I think she's AB positive.
Okay.
Which suggests that she should eat less meats, especially less red meats.
Yeah.
But it does tell her that she can do well with soft forms of dairy, like ricotta and cottage cheese and things like that, which actually she knows her body really reacts to. So instead, she really has to pick like the harder cheeses, the fermented cheeses, which for some people who are sensitive to dairy can actually be fine.
Right.
Or you have people like me, I can't tolerate any dairy at all. Like
Exactly.
we have a lot of conversations in the office because there's forms of dairy that have very little dairy protein left in them, like ghee and things like that. And it just, or Dr. Hurd one day was recommending to me whipping cream, but I'm so sensitive to it that I'll get a sinus infection within a couple of minutes after exposure, just from years of damage. It's not even worth it. I don't miss it.
Exactly. Like for me, for O positive, it broke it down based on culture as well. So for African Americans, who are O positive should not have dairy, because most African Americans are lactose intolerant.
Yes.
And so, I am lactose intolerant, but I dibble and dabble.
You got to be careful dibbling and
I
dabbling.
know.
Because here's the thing that people really don't understand about food sensitivities. And of course, there's a difference between a sensitivity and intolerance and an allergy. But at the end of the day, if your body's reacting to it, your body's seeing it as a threat.
Right.
So that reaction's only going to get worse over time because your immune system is going to say, wait, this is a problem. I see this. This is a problem. And it's going to strengthen that response. So it's going to get worse and worse over time for most people. But the other side of that is it's stealing nutrients away that you could be using for healthy tissue.
Okay.
So it's kind of working like a toxin in your body.
Okay.
So no
I tell my
dibbling
mom
and
that all the time.
dabbling. Boo.
Believe me, getting my mom to quit gluten was the hardest thing ever, but she has high rheumatoid factor. She has high blood factors for rheumatoid arthritis. And that's something where anything inflammatory, especially gluten and sugar, tend to really aggravate it. And she had a really bad episode, and it took having that really bad episode for me to finally be like, look, your body's seeing this as a toxin. You need to stop.
Wow. And what is gluten? Just can you tell everybody what's
so
because I know you're gluten free.
Yes.
And when I found out I was like, what are you eating? Because it's literally in everything.
Well, it's in everything packaged almost, right?
Okay.
And so that's that. I'll answer that. Everything has two parts, right? So gluten is a protein that's in wheat, and it actually is part of the seed that helps the wheat grow when it's in the soil. So it's really a good thing, and we could spend hours talking about why people have become sensitive to gluten, but one of the biggest things is that a lot of wheat, especially back in the 80s, was treated with a chemical called Roundup, which is we've just discovered more and more how really toxic that is.
What's the guy named Dwayne Johnson who just recently sued Roundup, and he has terminal cancer, I think, because of his exposure to it every day. So it's a serious thing.
It's a real serious chemical. So that's part of the reason that people become sensitive to it. So if you think about it, there's wheat in a lot of things, and it's in some other grains. Some people would say it's in oats and some wheat similar grains. Some people are sensitive to the gluten itself. Some people are sensitive to the molding process, if the wheat is not immediately processed. So some people do okay if they, for example, grind their own wheat at home and make their own bread. Some people are sensitive to other things, like the chemical preservatives added to the bread, the other chemicals that we add to it. Kinds of smart thoughts in my brain. Where did they go? There are so many things. Hydrogenated oils. Some people are really sensitive to hydrogenated oils, which for anybody who doesn't know is any oil that's been heated over its smoke point. And if you're not familiar with what that is, you can look it up online. Like I think coconut oil has one of the higher ones. I think it's like 400 degrees. So you'd be better off baking something with coconut oil than you would with butter. It changes the chemical structure of the fat, and that's what people react to. So there's a lot of different things that people react to, but the bottom line is it's usually just processed food. So like you said, people always ask me, well, okay, if you're not eating gluten, what do you eat? I shop around the outside of the grocery store. I buy produce, I buy fruits, I buy vegetables. A lot of times I'll use sweet potato instead of toast, or butternut squash instead of toast. I am a sucker for gluten-free waffles on the occasion, but I try to make them myself at home with flour. And then I do clean meats. I don't do any dairy either because my body reacts to it. But I mean, you'd be amazed how much food you can make with meats and produce. Sometimes rice. I'll do rice or quinoa. You know, non-wheat kind of grains. But for the most part, it's vegetables and fruit and meat. And there's so many possibilities once you start opening that up.
You really have to. You do have to go outside of the grocery stores.
Around the perimeter.
Around the perimeter with all the fresh products is at, and you don't see as many people out in the outskirts.
That's true.
Everybody's in the aisles.
In the aisles. Okay.
Well, and if you think about it too, we have to break down our food, right? So something that decays easily on its own, like has a short shelf life, like meat and vegetables and fruits, is going to be easier for your body to break down than something that's shelf stable. I've never understood the concept that like cheese, like Cheez-Its or powdered cheese can be shelf stable. Cheese is supposed to be something that decays. Why is it okay to have that in a box and have it not expire? You know, it's things like that that really, if you think about it, they've had more chemicals added to them so that they don't break down on their own. Like if something has an expiration date that's 3 years from now, it's going to be a lot harder for your body to break down, right?
Right.
Reading labels. We're back to reading labels, folks.
It all comes down to reading labels.
I just did not think about that. You know, you would think I could keep it for a long time. And I had a nutritionist say to me not even that long ago, like, throw that stuff out. You know what I mean? And then Combat Ready Kitchen, which is a book about how the food is being packaged in the grocery store, and she realized that her child's food was older than her child. Like the snacks, the fruit snacks that are, the things, the Capri Suns that are on the shelf are made kind of for military transportation. So they don't have access to refrigeration and stuff like that. So there's things have to have a lot of preservatives in it. And they just put that in the grocery store as well because they have so much of it.
Wow.
That it has to go somewhere.
Well, and I think they started it during World War I or World War II when there was food scarcity. So, I mean, it comes from a good place. Yes, absolutely. If you are concerned about nuclear fallout and you have a shelter, you're better off with canned food than no food.
Right.
And canned food is still better than boxed food, right, because of the way it's processed. But there's things that go into that as well.
I think because people are now has gotten so lazy with cooking and eating on.
But they're stressed out, right?
Thanks, Cole. Comes back to stress.
And you know, when you shop on the outskirts, you know that means you have to cook because of the short shelf life. And so I think a lot of times, you know, to give them the opportunity not to have to be cooking every day, they'll get stuff down the aisle, so then they could just cook whenever they need to, and it'll still be there. So, yeah. It's not good for you, though.
Hey, I mean, and we all have to come from where we're at, right? And if you have the means, and I know this doesn't apply to everybody, because I know plenty of people who work 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, but there are people who have weekends off. There's such a thing called batch cooking. I mean, I'm out of my house 12 hours most days, just between traffic and the time I spend in the office and the distance I live from the office. So I cook on Sundays and Tuesdays or Thursdays, and I'll cook a lot of food at once. So and then I'll portion it out and put it all in my little containers. And I don't have to think about it.
Her glass containers.
My glass containers.
Absolutely.
And I don't have to think about it for, at least for a couple of days. So at least that's for somewhere where people can kind of meet themselves in the middle. And heck, if you even cook half of your meals that way, you're still doing better than the people who are eating out 3 meals a day.
Right.
The other thing that I think people have a stigma in their brain about is that cooking at home is expensive, and that food is expensive, and organic food is expensive, and produce is expensive. But if you look at how much money you spend per person if you're eating in a restaurant, even if it's somewhere like McDonald's that's just bottom of the barrel cheap, right? If you look at that and then you compare it to the amount of food you could get to feed your family if you buy it from the grocery store and cook it yourself, the difference in the cost is astronomical.
And I think too, I think we had said this before. Me and you was talking about it. You know, I think when they talk about shopping organic, all this kind of stuff, they all may think of Whole Foods and Trader Joe's, and they could be a little bit more expensive. But now they got a lot of stores now that have great organic sections as well, and this is cheap. And you know, the new hot thing on YouTube that people have been talking about is Aldi's.
Oh yeah.
Aldi's is a great store to go to that is not as expensive, and you get great organic stuff like that, and it's a cheaper price. So just like you go shopping for the best bargain for your shoes and your purses.
Yeah, you can do the same for your food.
You
That is very
and
true.
you have an obligation to yourself to do the same for your food. Number one thing I love about Kroger is they give you coupons actually related to what you buy. I never used to use coupons because I got so fed up that you could never find them for the stuff that I actually bought, because it was always for stuff in boxes and chemicals I didn't use.
Right.
But I go to Kroger and they're like, here, look, here's a coupon for apples. What? I could get a coupon for organic apples? When did that start? I mean, there are so many resources. And like you said, I think people have a stigma in their minds about Aldi. I have found the best stuff at Aldi. They have the best chocolate too.
Yeah, and you know, and then with Publix, I learned this from one of the girls at the job. Publix takes Kroger's coupons.
I didn't know that.
Yes. So you can go
So many tricks. I mean, we are learning so many things today.
and you go use the coupons at Kroger, especially if they have those buy one get one BOGOs, all that kind of stuff. So yeah.
I mean, it is worth it to do your research.
Yeah.
And like you say, I mean, people will go all out for the material or like external things, and we don't think about the same way as, you know, our food, which is how we're able to get around. Like, your body's source of fuel is food.
Yep. And that's, I think, what we need to start seeing it as, is that our food is our fuel. And people tell me all the time, they're like, well, I don't really have time to look at the discounts or look at coupons. You had time to be on Facebook.
Absolutely.
Uh-oh.
Absolutely. You have time. I tell people, you have time to do whatever you choose to do. You know, exercise and grocery shopping is something that you just don't like to do. So then you say you don't have time to do it. You know, but if it was a Beyonce concert, you're going to create time to go do that.
Make time. And the thing is, it all comes back to stress, right? It all comes back to stress and a desire. And at the beginning, learning how to batch cook, shopping around the perimeter of the grocery store, reading labels, exercising, they all require a little bit more effort at the beginning, right? But if you talk to anybody who's made any kind of health transformation, they end up with so much more energy. So I would extremely highly encourage you to spend that time investment now, because you are going to reap the rewards by the bucketful. I mean, we could talk here all night about just what I've experienced personally in terms of how changing your health can change your life. I mean, you can do so much more when you're not suffocating.
Right.
And that's really what I feel like it is. You're suffocating in your own body.
Your organs are suffocating.
They are. They're drowning.
So
we're all marinating in cortisol soup. We're all marinating in stress hormones.
Right. That is
Marinating in stress. And you just said that. What was the statistic you said about the stress related?
The National Institute of Health, one of the most prestigious science organizations in the United States, says that 90% of all disease is triggered by stress. 90% of all disease comes from stress.
Absolutely.
What are you doing about your stress?
Absolutely, because when people come to me and they say, you know, they have high blood pressure or diabetes or high cholesterol, they'll say it's genetic. And I'll tell them, well, it's data states that only 5 to 10% of all cases based on genetics. It's based on your lifestyle, and stress is part of lifestyle.
I will piggyback on that. I read a research study this week that was saying that all of the factors involved in obesity-related diseases, including diabetes, including high blood pressure, including heart problems, are all based in that sympathetic nerve stimulation, that fight or flight nerve dominance. So
Stress
it's
related.
not your genetics, it's your stress and your lifestyle. And you know, I think the biggest thing that we ignore in healthcare is that you cannot prescribe a drug to fix lifestyle.
No.
Lifestyle is going to be the thing that comes back over and over and over again.
True
if you
that.
look at things that people take over the over the counter or prescription for long periods of time, including some high blood pressure medications, including cholesterol medications, they're not intended for long-term use. And the research says that you can change those numbers in your blood work. You can change those numbers in your blood pressure with lifestyle alone, or primarily with lifestyle. And then you may only need your prescriptions a small percentage of the time, or a very small dose. There is so much you can do. You have the power alone to control your health. Every single one of us has the power and the responsibility to take care of our bodies, because we only get one.
Right.
But we have all this infinite body wisdom that's able to heal ourselves. We're just not tapping into it.
Exactly.
So before we go, tell us how people, before we run out of time, I want you to tell people how to get in touch with you, where is the Atlanta Natural Health Clinic?
Please.
And I have to say this testimony, that this is it has the most serene, loving environment. I mean, even the bathroom. It's just like, I mean, maybe 10, but it is enjoyable. They're like, you have to go. I'm not even going to tell you what it looks like. You have to go and see for yourself. And I come in, I've been sitting in traffic, not that long, because I don't work too far from the center. So when I come in, I'm a little haywire. And then I see Allie, and we're just laughing. And by the time I walk out of there, I'm lighter, I'm laughing, I feel so much better. So and I discovered the Atlanta Natural Health Clinic 10 years ago. And I thought to myself, when I get myself together, I'm gonna come back here. And I didn't think it was gonna take 10 years, but everything in its rightful order, in its due time. And when I found it again, I was like, I walked in, I said, I have got to have you on the Wellness Architect show, because I know that it's going to be, it's phenomenal information. And we have conversations like this every time we walk. And they have different events at the clinic as well for the patients. I mean, it's so much going on. It's more than just chiropractic services and nutrition. They have coloring books for adults.
Yes, we do.
Books that you can check out.
Not to stop you, because what was so funny is when she called me and said, I got an idea, it was perfect for me, because I have chiropractic friends, but it was like, I've been trying to get somebody one chiropractic facility for, I've been doing this 2 years now, 2 years.
What?
And they don't either they don't respond or whatever. And I don't get upset about it because they're busy, but it happened, like you said, in due time. So when she called me and she said, "This is somebody I want to do for your show," I was like, "Cool." And so when she called me back and said it's confirmed, I thought perfect. And so I'm so glad it was you. You came with great energy,
beautiful energy, and
great spirit. Yeah, and I'm really big on that. And so I recommend anybody to go there and just try the experience.
Tell us what it is.
Thank you so much. No, I'm blessed and honored to be here. I feel like people need to hear this. This is not something that's being said.
Absolutely.
So we're at the Atlanta Natural Health Clinic. It's in the Chamblee part of Atlanta. If you have no idea what that means, we're in Northeast Atlanta, between Doraville, Tucker, and Brookhaven, kind of on the northeast side of Buckhead. We're on Buford Highway. You can't miss Buford Highway.
No.
If you go down Buford Highway all the time, we're by Faux 24, everybody's favorite. If you want to reach us on the web, it's www.atlantanaturalhealth.com. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram just by searching Atlanta Natural Health. or you can try us on YouTube. I have my own channel. It's Gerta D.C. I don't have enough followers yet to have my own custom URL, so if y'all could follow me, I'd really appreciate it.
I will do that today.
It's CHELSEADRDA.
Yes, yes.
I'll do that today.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I want you to know that when I was up this morning, promoting the show, I tagged Atlanta Natural Health Clinic, and they the flyer went on their page, and they instantly responded back, was like, looking forward to be on the show, and then they shared it. So they are very
definitely
active,
interactive. And
yeah.
Do y'all have any events or anything going on at the clinic?
Yeah, so we don't have any new health classes coming up right now, but for our patients right now, we do Wellness Wednesdays every Wednesday in October. Allie and I are dressing up in costume to talk about different health topics. So this Wednesday is Mythical Creatures Day. We're talking about the magic behind chiropractic that we kind of debunked here today. But Allie and I will be at the Pure Motion Yoga Health Fair, and that's on Zonalite Place in Atlanta this Saturday, October 20th from 2 to 7 p.m., I believe, and you can go to Pure Motion Yoga's Facebook page for more details on that. We're going to have free yoga classes. We're going to have little mini health classes. I'm going to be teaching a mini course about chiropractic and loving the temple of the body that you're in, and all proceeds from that are benefiting Children's Healthcare of Atlanta.
Okay.
So pretty exciting.
So before we close it out, I would like Miss Dr. Chelsea to, whatever's on your spirit, it don't have to be about chiropractic, it could be about anything. Whoever you want to leave the audience with, you go first, Erika go second, and I'll close it out.
Awesome. So something I talk a lot with our patients about, and this is something I really go into depth on YouTube, is that you don't have to make a radical life change today. You can, but it's really hard, and if you are that kind of person, power to you, please do it. But if you're not, start making one change every day. I post a video every Wednesday about making one change in every day. And that's how real, true, lifetime, lasting changes happen. That's how lifestyle changes happen. But you have the power to do it. Start right now. There's something you can do right now.
All righty. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
EC?
Well, I just want to thank Dr. Chelsea again for coming on and blessing us with all of this wisdom and knowledge. And I've learned so many things. I'm going to have to go back through the video because I think some parts just left me and Kevin really speechless. So
It did.
we definitely appreciate that. And I want to thank everyone who watched it. Everyone's going to watch in the future. And please share this video. And once again, you can go to the Atlanta Natural Health Clinic. They do have a Facebook page. You're all on Instagram, too.
Yep.
They're on Instagram as well. And if you ever... 4633 Buford Highway, Atlanta, Georgia, 30341. Because sometimes
The zip is important.
the zip is important because you will end up somewhere else.
Somewhere
So that's
in
30341. And just go in, and the atmosphere in itself, it's warm, it's welcoming, it's a lot of fun, it's very lighthearted. There's nothing, like, walking into Star Wars or something like that. That music
it's
like
not
that.
a formal environment.
Right.
There are a lot of formal medical offices. Respect. There's a lot of formal chiropractic offices. That's not where we're at. We're a family environment.
And it's quite obvious. So thank you, Dr. Chelsea, for coming again.
Thank you
for the Atlanta Natural Health Clinic, and thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Kevin.
especially for those who watch. Thank you.
I want to say, first of all, thank you, Dr. Chelsea. You were amazing. The information you gave us and the energy that you gave was just...
and she's always like this. She woke up like this.
I'm just truly grateful for it. I hope the people who listen, those who will be listening in future, get all the information that we got out of it as well and apply it to their lives and help it make them be a better person. To EC, thank you, ma'am, for bringing these great people to us.
It's about making connections and change, like you said, making one change a day and giving new perspectives on things that the conventional media, the mass media, is just not addressing.
Exactly.
And everyone, I'm out here in the streets, I see it everyone is dealing with it. So it's important. I knew that this was
So for
important.
those who don't know, EC comes on my show once a month, and she comes with someone different each time in holistic health. And so I can't wait for it to. It's going to be for month of November. As for me, I just want to say, first of all, next Monday the show is going to be earlier. It's going to be at 5 to 7 because the guest I have has a class at 8 o'clock. But I really wanted him on the show. I am the real DP. He is a big time personal trainer here in Atlanta.
Okay.
He has a new gym called HX Fitness in West Midtown. So he's going to come on the show next week, and we're going to talk about fitness because since we're in the fourth quarter, we really need to start right now instead of waiting until January 1st.
Right. I was telling somebody that today.
And everybody falls off the bandwagon in the holidays, right?
Right.
So start those healthy habits now
Now.
before the holidays,
Right.
and you'll have a much better holiday season.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so, and one last thing, I do want to thank my alma mater of Eastern Michigan University. They're giving me an award next weekend for homecoming, so I'm truly grateful for that. So I'm looking forward to see everybody at homecoming next weekend to celebrate this situation. And so at the end of it, I want everybody to be their best self. Take the information that Dr. Chelsea gave you. Take the information that Erika gives you. Take the information that I give you to try to be the best person you could be, mind, body, and spirit. With that being said, be great, be you, be authentic, and we are out. Thank you. Peace.
Next time.